Could we have the house lights up, way up, so I can see the people? That's it. And they don't have to be so spotty on me. A little less on me, a little more on the people. That's it. And that's not me doing that because I particularly like you. It makes me speak better. It's a totally self-serving thing on my part, as I try to make in every facet of my life self-serving. I did this once before. I don't prepare a talk, and I don't not prepare a talk out of disrespect. It's really out of respect that I say something that I perhaps hadn't said before, and that it's of the moment, and it's really the way I'm feeling that day, and it's in that sense just a little bit more genuine. And in fact, I guess I am right. I always criticize conferences when I talk at them. There's something that's occurring with this 15-minute shit and the 18-minute shit that I created with the TED conference, where speakers are practicing what they're going to do in 18 or 15 minutes. I don't even know what it was for here, 15, 18, what's the difference? Where they're working out because they know it's going to be taped and on the fucking television or on your computer, right? And so they're practicing what they can, and there's something that's not genuine about it because they know it. They're going to work out how they're going to give a talk within a prescribed period of time, and it isn't really a natural thing. I mean, maybe the Gettysburg Address was 3 minutes. I mean, you're going to toss that out because it's not 18 minutes and it doesn't make TED Talks or something else? I mean, it doesn't make any sense anymore. What I created, I need to destroy now. And everybody is so happy with this little increment of time, which I just took out of the hat. I didn't make it 19, I didn't make it 20, I made it 18. He makes it 15. What the fuck is the difference? So I am trying to reinvent what a conference, what a gathering is, right? And he said, don't talk over the 18 minutes, give me all this. I said, just don't put it on at all. Whatever. Don't put it on at all, and when you want me to stop talking, say, that's it. I mean, be an editor a little bit.
That's it.
I know him. Always wants his moment in the sun. Don't screw with me. I'm not holding this because it's a phallic thing and I'm old and my pecker's gotten smaller and all that. I just had I was all day yesterday in Albany having a Tesla 3 full-body 2-hour scan because we're going to show a scan of my body and do it all this stuff, my brain scan, everything at the conference, my TED Med. I do medical conferences too now, TED Med. Which you can't get in, but you ought to look at it online because it's really nice. I let somebody in. I mean, there's always a seat for somebody who's famous or rich enough, but is that you, John Abeley? No shit, you're here? Holy moly. I need to talk to you about something. And I know you're not coming this year. Anyway, this is not phallic. But I've always loved bananas. I thought it was a perfect fruit. You can eat a banana almost anywhere because it's supposed to. You don't refrigerate. It doesn't need refrigeration. I mean, they go bad, but you don't refrigerate a banana, and you think it's clean because you peel it back. And I lived in the jungle for 6 months in Tikal. I mapped a third of Tikal. If you don't know what that is, you should. Not what a map is, but Tikal. And we had a finger banana tree, and I loved that, eating little finger bananas. And sometimes, I always peeled them this way, and sometimes it's a little hard to peel a banana this way, so you end up putting it in your mouth, and it's no longer a clean piece of fruit. And then I realized that if you peel it this way, all the strings come off, and it's the way chimpanzees peel bananas. So, I mean, that's fascinating. It's the opposite way of doing things. And isn't that really what the speeches were about so far today? Just about the opposite of things. I did this once before. I wanted to see what the TEDx thing was like. And it's really this proliferation, the TEDing of the world. And there was a couple good speakers there, but a lot of it was very amateur. And so I gave a little talk, and that's when I did the banana. I saw a banana. I thought, well, that'd be funny to do. And I threw it on the floor, and then somebody collected it and said, can I have that banana? The idea of it's a celebrity banana now. It'll really, I can imagine what it's like now. That speech was about 6 months ago. This book, which they talked about, this is they have to give a talk by having it all practiced and do all that. I really usually don't like that and all, but in order to get in what they need to get in and have it sync with those photos, they have to give that. These are two amazing people that gave this talk. I mean, they do each one of their books. You don't think they can do it better the next time. And, well, maybe never. It hasn't been better. It was very good. Then the next one was, and then it got better. They're generally better, and this is really a wonderful book. This is really a wonderful book. But I'm not, I've talked enough about the book. I'm going to read you my quote in the book. The reason I took off more than 75 pounds, I took off 90 pounds. The reason I took off more than 90 is more than 75. The reason I took off more than 75 pounds in the last year was because nobody told me to. I realized taking off weight is a self-induced mental exercise. Although I glibly said I took off the weight by shitting more than I was eating, my diet was even simpler. I just ate less, a whole lot less, and my brain thought it was a good idea. I said that to the last TED Med conference because everybody's asking me how I took off all this weight. And it wasn't because of a doctor. It wasn't because of health. I did tell somebody I didn't like once at a Newport party. They said, oh, you look so wonderful. You know, how did you do that? How did you take off all that weight? I said, cancer. It's not really. That's a mean thing to do. Well, it really is mean. You're talking about the news, and I think you leave out one thing, and that is it has to be, part of it is not only the availability, but a big part of it is making it understandable. And the blogs and all the stuff we see around, a lot of it just isn't understandable. We're coming very soon up to the anniversary of the Bhopal disaster. Some people here might not even know about the Bhopal disaster. This terrible chemical disaster in Bhopal. And this was an obsession with me when it occurred, because I read it in the newspaper of this disaster some 30 years ago almost, and I didn't know about the town or the city or what it was, and I went to my gazetteer immediately. It was a front page story, and I looked it up and I saw where it was and everything, and at the 5th anniversary or 10th anniversary, Tom Brokaw had me up for lunch with his guys in New York, and I said, it's the anniversary of Bhopal today, it just happened to be, and I said, how many people think it was a little village or a big town or a city or a big village? And about a third of the people said they didn't care, and that they weren't in the geography business, and then a third of them thought it was a village or a large village, and and the third of them just kept on eating lunch. And I said, well, it's about the size of Boston or San Francisco. I said, that doesn't take very long to say in a news story on television. And in America, you would have a sense of what it was. And they were really quite surprised at that, really quite surprised. At the 15th anniversary of Bhopal, the New York Times that did this story on me, how many people saw the story in the newspaper? Anybody here? Nobody? Some people? It was really in everybody's face, I know. Who read it? I saw the New York Times started the first sentence of the story saying, Bhopal is the largest city in central India. And that's the crux of it. By telling the truth, they lied. Because if you say it's the largest city in central India, which is the truth, what it means to people, it's millions of people. Because the cities in India have millions of people in it. So you can lie by telling the truth, by not trying to make something understandable. And that is my singular, simple passion in life, is how to understand what it's like not to understand and make something understandable to another human being. Truly understandable. Not just the facts, not just a little diagram, not just a little line, not telling the truth, but making it understandable. And that's not in our vocabulary, and it's not what reporters do. And I heard out there in the lobby, how's it going? How you feeling? Looking good. You took off weight. Then they moved on. What are you doing? Keeping busy. There wasn't one fucking piece of communication there and no respect for me at all. Because there wasn't one question, one statement that actually wanted to know anything, that actually wanted to engage me, that actually cared about anything. Or three people going, can I ask you a question? That's already a question. You have to ask a question to ask a question? We're so sloppy. We care so little about each other. And it's not just happiness. It's really wanting to know what the other person thinks, or an engagement, or feeling they really want to know what you think. It is so fundamental. It's down really in the trenches. It's not about being smart. In fact, it's about the acceptance of being stupid. Don't you all know how stupid you are? You are all stupid. And the power that I have over perhaps everybody in this room, except John Abeley, is that I more embrace my stupidity than you embrace your stupidity. I really know how dumb I am. You titter a little bit, but it's not funny. It is really a way of getting through the day. It's really a way of letting something in. Every project I start, I've done 80-some books, I've done a whole shitload of conferences, really start from that blank slate of not knowing. What a joy not to know. What a joy to actually, really not know something and slowly fill it in with things that you understand and find the patterns in that understanding and the changes. For whatever reasons in the last few years, I'm 75, as I said, in the last few years, my memory has gotten astonishing. Maybe it's the big flame out. Look at this. They keep this stage so messy here. You have to do a little bit better housekeeping. You have a big staff, you know, you should do something. In 1848, the richest person on earth was John Jacob Astor, and he died in 1848, and he made his money selling beaver pelts, and he was the richest person in the world. And then in 1877, the richest person on earth was Cornelius Vanderbilt, and he made his money in shipping and some railroads. 1937, the richest person on earth was Rockefeller. That's when he died, and he made it in oil. In the 1880s and all, there was more millionaires living in this little bump in Mexico, which we call the Yucatan. Of course, we're wrong. It's 3 states. It's Campeche, Yucatan, and Quintana Roo. Do you know that? You should. It's our neighbor. The Quintana Roo wasn't made into a state of Mexico until 1917 and was lawless until 1931. And that's where Cancun is on the top of that, a created city, and the capital is Chetumal. But the other 2 states were the Yucatan, which the capital is Merida, and Campeche, whose capital is Campeche. Those 2 states had more millionaires living there than any other place in the world. Well, isn't that so strange? Why were they living there? Because of the Industrial Revolution, everybody was shipping shit everywhere. And they didn't have duct tape, and they didn't have corrugated cartons, and they didn't really have access to wire and all the other ways of packing. Everything has to be packed. And so packing became ubiquitous, and the sisal that was grown there and in Africa became really important. And that was the 2 places to grow it, so they set up all these haciendas with large tracts of land, and wealthy people lived there with their own churches and their own quarters and their own beautiful homes, and grew sisal. Now, why are these things interesting? Look at the change. Look at the change of patterns of our value system. Of a man, I guess, made $1 billion selling Zappo, right? I buy my MBTs from Zappo. You ought to wear them. They're really terrific. They're really wonderful. I really like MBTs. You kind of rock. I know it seems like I'm going to fall off the stage, but I'm not. But the change, these patterns of change of who the wealthiest person is, where these places, where these things of activities are. And we are so narrow thinking we're just moving along and there's a regular cycle moving along, not of change, and we can predict the next thing happening. It's not going to happen that way. We have to understand change. There was just a volcano that went off in Iceland that stopped all the traffic for a while, and it was a volcano, we call it volcano. Volcanoes are not created equal. That blew up, and it throws up a very fine pumice into the air, and that's why the traffic was all screwed up. But in 1783, Laki, 100 miles to the east of that, was a volcano in Iceland, and it threw up the same kind of pumice, and it went down over Europe, stopped a whole season of crops for a year. A lot of people died of starvation. But this time it kept on going down over the Nile Valley, hung there for 3 years, and 1 million people died, and you never learned about it at school. And it has nothing to do with emissions from cars either. There was no cars in 1783. And we know that this happened because Benjamin Franklin was in Paris and he wrote about it. And there's another connection. And isn't that a nice way of learning about history? And the volcanoes that go off constantly, or the volcano that goes off constantly in Hawaii, is a different kind of volcano. It spews forth liquid molten rocks. They're not created equal. And this isn't trivial stuff. This is really interesting things, because a single event can cause havoc. I had dinner with the head of FEMA about 2 months ago. He's going to talk at TED this year, and he's TED Med, and What was fascinating about it is a single sentence he said to me. This is Craig Fugit. He said, there's just three things that happen when some disaster occurs. There's three things you have to ask yourself. Quick, cheapest, best. Wow. Can you imagine a politician saying something that clear? He said, if somebody is thirsty, if there are people who need water, it doesn't make any difference what it costs. You just have to get them water. Then you can sit back and, I get your joke. See,
that was my polite way of saying I love you, and that's it. He promised me that if I said that's it, he would stop right then and there. Promised me, and he kept to his word. Richard, thank you.
I'll tell you one more short story. I have this in my hand. I was being driven down here today, up here today, and there's a story in the New York Times, and you have to really watch there's a whole story about all these pads and books on pads. Just think about this, because this is another pattern. You know, when each modality changes, we ape the previous modality. We call something that doesn't act in any way like a record a record. The first movies were just filming stage shows, and each modality. So now we have, because people are so clever, we have all these pads that make believe we're turning a page. Do you realize how insulting that is? That because they're showing off and they can show us turning a page, that this is a book. It is not a book. It isn't a book. It's a new modality, a completely different modality. It is not a book. And I'm working on that right now.
Thank you, Richard. I love you.